I don't think the draft pick enters into it. I think at this point you just got to determine whether he's good enough to play the rest of the year or not. And as you know, I've been saying for the last couple of weeks that I don't think that's the case. But Chip evidently thinks differently because he was pretty adamant on Monday that Sam is his guy. He's got full confidence in him, and he hasn't even considered making a change.
Yeah, I mean, is that surprising? I mean, are you surprised at how he has basically come out and vehemently supported him? I mean, he has been really behind him more so than I think I can remember him being with quarterbacks in the past.
Yeah, and I don't quite get why. I mean, maybe it's because, as we talked about in the past, that to bench him would mean that Chip has to admit that he was wrong to get him. And Chip, if anything, has a very big ego and doesn't like to admit when he's wrong. So I think he's just going to ride with Bradford just for the sake of that he made the move, the controversial move, the trade for him. And I don't think that he would bench him just because of that.
Yeah, and obviously, they're in a situation where, you had drops the other night, but some people think that Sam played well. So I said, look, I don't think he played poorly, but he didn't do anything special.
He didn't play. He played okay, but
okay, nothing special.
In his defense, I don't think he was given the opportunity to do anything special. It seemed like that Chip kind of really reined him in as far as the passes he was allowed to attempt. Everything was 5 yards, 7 yards, that kind of thing. I don't recall any instance where they actually threw the ball down the field. Maybe the pass to Zach Ertz, but everything else was just dinking and dunking. And to be honest, he wasn't the reason for the loss. I mean, the receivers were absolutely terrible. Plus, the offensive line was very bad too, I thought.
Yeah, 5 sacks, and, we saw a little bit of him eluding guys, moving around, and, a lot of drops. I mean, some of those drops are obvious balls that should be caught. Some of them aren't the best throws in the world, but it's obvious that this thing just looks clunky. It just doesn't look fluid, and I don't know that if you make a change to Mark Sanchez, I'm not sitting here telling you Sanchez is a better quarterback by any stretch. I think it's half a dozen, one or the other, but maybe he runs the offense more fluid.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's got an extra year of experience with this offense, don't forget, and he's worked with most of these guys before, not only last year but also during training camp this year because he was working with the twos and some of these guys were there too. So just better suited to run the offense. I think he's got, like I said, has more experience. I think he's a little bit more – it seems like Sam just seems to be lacking confidence or continuity or something that – there's just that disconnect with him and the receivers, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. And I think that Sanchez has that chemistry that Sam doesn't have.
Dave, I don't know, that there's a definitive divide or split, but do you sense that Sam is lacking or losing support from the offensive players?
Oh, no. They're firmly behind his corner. I talk with them every week, and they're always the same response. They have full confidence in Sam. Sam's our guy. We're going to do our best. They pretty much put it all on themselves, especially Jordan Matthews. He realized he was having a lousy year. He just can't seem to hold on to the football, and he'd be the first one to tell you that he needs to work on that and get it right. How you do it, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know how much more time you can spend on the jugs machine. But, and Jason Kelsey, same thing. He thinks he's having a terrible year, and he's the first one to admit that. So I don't think anybody's putting the blame on Sam.
Dave, well, I mean, I'm not blaming. I don't think it's all his fault, but you brought him here. You brought him here to be special because the guy you had before was just an average guy that. Same thing. You couldn't ask him to do a lot. You're getting into the same situation where you're not asking your quarterback to do a whole heck of a lot, so it kind of defeats why you brought him here. Let me ask you about Chip, the GM, the coach, the play caller. I'm looking at a team that doesn't pay a lot of attention to detail, and that shows with penalties and bad calls. Doesn't know when the personnel's out in the field. I think that's a whole bizarre situation. Is it evident that to you that there's too much on Chip's plate?
Yeah, I think so. I think Lurie made a big mistake by giving him that much power.
I think we lost Dave there. Man, the cell phones today have been pretty bad all over the area. We had 3 for 3 today with Phil and Dave and obviously John as well. Let's go back to Dave. You said you think Lurie made a mistake. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I just think that Chip didn't deserve that much power so soon. At least Andy kind of like earned his way to make the personnel decisions, even though he was working in concert with Howie Roseman. But it seemed like Chip had final say. I don't know that Chip kind of deserved that yet. I mean, what has he done? How many playoff games has he won? 0. So I just don't get I don't get why Lurie did that, and it's evident that he just seems to. If he could just like focus on the offense primarily, I think he'd be okay. But he seems to be like have his hand in too many pies, if you will. I just don't right that there is a little bit too much on his plate. He seems to be, I don't say losing control, but he seems to be confused at times almost.
Dave, you wrote at the Press of Atlantic City this week that you feel that the team appears broken heading into the break. A lot of teams, including Chip's first one, 1-3, got off to a bad start, ended up winning a bunch of games. Last year, they started the season hot, finished flat. Does this team have any signs of a hot streak down the road?
Yeah, well, I did write in my column last Sunday that I knew they were going to lose to Carolina, which they did, and I think they're going to win their next 4. Just because of the opponents they're playing. Dallas without Tony Romo, Miami, Tampa, and Detroit on Thanksgiving, which is a complete dumpster fire. So, I mean, if they can get to 7-4, then I think maybe that'll give them maybe a little bit of confidence that they need to get this thing on a roll a little bit. But I don't see them. They're just not an elite team yet, and I don't know that they will be this year. Even if they can, manage to finish 10-6, I just don't see a playoff win in there anywhere. I don't see them beating any of the good teams, like the Green Bays, the Atlantas, the Carolinas. So, it's great that if you do go 10-6 again, but it seemed like it was pretty clear that Chip didn't think that was going to be good enough, and it's kind of looking that it's not going to be good enough this year either.
Yeah, and obviously 10 wins in the East would be really good. I mean, they'd probably win the division going away here. But as you mentioned, this looks like a team that has not taken a step forward. It actually looks like a team that's been taking a step back. And wasn't that, Dave, right about the time when Andy started to have problems, when he became the GM and he was calling plays, and it seemed like the team was very disorganized at that time, where some of these guys, it just seems they have too much on their plate.
Yeah, it seemed like, I guess, like the dream team season, with the Asamoah, DRC, Jason Babin, Vince Young, all that. That seems to be – that was around the time when it really started to go sour. You can go back even before that. Like, after they lost to Arizona in 2008, Jim Johnson passes away. Donovan McNabb is gone the next year. Brian Dawkins is gone. And it seemed like they lost their way a little bit after that and never really got it back. It seemed like they were just kind of almost just like trying to fit square pegs in round holes, as piecemealing things together. And you're right, that seems to be the case with Chip too. Especially this offseason, just all the moves he made that kind of they were very puzzling to me. I just don't get it, and it seems to be that they're not. It's clear that they're not working out the way that he envisioned.
Your take on the Murray-Matthews split, and obviously the injury, and how he tried to explain all that.
What a bunch of baloney. I think my groin's pulled worse than Ryan Matthews. How can you say that the guys like Phil Sheridan had said earlier today that Chip never really knows anything about any injuries ever. Now all of a sudden he knows exactly what's wrong with Ryan Matthews and why he only got one carry in the second half. Which was a carry, by the way, where he was supposedly hurt but ran away from everybody in that 63-yard run. I mean, he left Carolina's defense in the dust on that, and never mentioned anything on an injury after the game. Wasn't holding any ice pack on his leg, none of that. So I'm not buying that at all. I think that I hate to admit it, but I think it almost might be a contract thing where they gave DeMarco all that money, and maybe they just think that he's got to be the every down guy, and they got to make sure that he gets his carries, even though it's very clear who the best running back is, like I said, and it's not DeMarco Murray. How
much though, if Matthews was able to be on the field more, how much do you think that improves or changes the offense?
Well, you can't give him 25 carries because he's going to get hurt. That's just his history. But I think maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 10 extra carries a game might do the trick. And It seems to me that the offense works much better with him in there. He's more decisive on his decisions. Straight ahead runner, runs hard. DeMarco's just I don't know what it is with him, but he's just dancing around the line, can't seem to get to the outside. It doesn't even seem to be running well on the inside. I mean, there's been, a glimpse here and there of the talent that gave him the rushing title last year, but the consistency just isn't there. And I don't know what the reason is, but I would definitely think that Ryan deserves more opportunities because I do think the offense runs better when he's out there.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's obvious. Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. For more on the Eagles, pressofAtlanticCity.com. And Wednesdays here with Dave as the Eagles enter the bye week. Big statement there, 4 in a row. We'll see how that all works out. They start Sunday, most likely Sunday night. We'll see if they flex that game out when they take on the Dallas Cowboys. All right, Dave, we'll talk to you then.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.